All right, what's up, guys? We're back with another video. It's your host, Tevin, aka Baby Mark Henry. Today's video, we're gonna be watching when wrestling matches where the wrong guy won. And the match that's should be number one is the feud between Booker T and Triple H. I remember back in the day at WrestleMania, where we had the great feud of Triple H and Booker T, and Triple H won at WrestleMania, which it really didn't make sense. If you just go back and look at the feud, Triple H was being racist, those racist comments to Booker T, and the fact that Triple H won just proved everything that he said to Booker T. He was right, that he wasn't meant to be in this company. He was a thug. He shouldn't be a wrestler. So when the bad guy wins something like that, you're just like, oh, I guess he was right. But enough about that. Let's watch this video.
Sometimes in pro wrestling, decisions are made that leave you scratching your head, particularly when it comes to who wins and who takes a loss. In a perfect world, wins and losses are laid out for specific reasons, and there's already a roadmap in place that ends with both fan satisfaction and big money, but this doesn't always happen. Some match outcomes throughout pro wrestling history have been detrimental to both the company and the person taking the loss. Fans have shown so much displeasure about certain matches that still to this day you'll hear people say that should have never happened or the wrong guy won. So let's take a look at some of these matches in today's video, and let's check out some of the biggest examples of the wrong guy going over. As always, you may not agree with some of these, and that's fine. Don't come at me if your favorite superstars included in this video. This was put together while researching the topic online and seeing what matches got brought up the most, but do use the comment section to share your opinions. First, it's an obvious one. Triple H beating Booker T at WrestleMania 19 is seen as a big misstep from WWE.
What did I tell y'all? Honestly, this should have been number one, but it has me curious to see what others made the list. But I told you this is the one I hated.
Not only because Booker lost all his momentum after getting pinned, but because the storyline going into the match made it feel like Booker was actually gonna win.
Yeah.
Triple H made comments about people like Booker not being deserving of the World Championship, implying that the color of Booker's skin was reason enough for him not to deserve any professional success. When watching the promos back, you can also take this as Triple H may be implying that Booker's history with the law and his rough upbringing were actually reasons why Booker didn't deserve the gold in comparison to the clean-cut, suit-wearing Triple H. But then Hunter talked about Booker's, and again I quote, nappy hair and how Booker T generally presented himself.
Wow.
It made Triple H look bad, not gonna lie about it. With the words Triple H said, fan support for Booker T was really high, and even forgetting about all this, I personally think Booker really did deserve to win the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania, just because he was always an excellent top-tier performer. But Triple H pretty much destroyed Booker at WrestleMania 19, and still to this day, fans bring it up as a case of the wrong guy going over. It's hard to argue, really. Triple H was a made man, and dropping the belt to Booker wouldn't have hurt Hunter in the least. It would have done wonders for Booker T in 2003, but Booker took a loss right here, and the storyline was pretty much over after this WrestleMania match. Hunter would move into a rivalry with Kevin Nash shortly afterwards. I know the vast majority of fans wouldn't care if Brock was never seen on television again after recent developments, but way back in 2012 when he made his WWE return, he was showcased as a new, more dominant monster thanks to his time in UFC. John Cena, meanwhile, was going through what he called the worst year of his career. The Rock had defeated Cena at WrestleMania 28, and John now had to fight an unstoppable beast at the very next pay-per-view. And the majority of that Cena vs Brock match that took place at Extreme Rules 2012 was pretty much nothing but Brock Lesnar destroying Cena from bell to bell. Lesnar was more violent than ever before, busting Cena wide open at the start of the match and showing off this new style that made him someone to be legitimately afraid of. He bullied Cena to the point where it felt like the match would have to be stopped, but bizarrely, Cena ended up winning after delivering an attitude adjustment on the steel ring steps. To be fair, the loss didn't necessarily hurt Brock Lesnar nor his bank account, but seeing Cena win again when the odds were stacked so highly against him probably did John more harm than good. It kinda made fans grumble a bit because, like it or not, Brock did bring something new to WWE when he returned, and that was an incredibly vicious and...
Now, I agree with this. Seeing this Brock Lesnar, like I always said, his second and third run with the company was way better than his first run. Don't get me wrong, his first run was something to see, but these second and third runs that he had were by far his best runs ever. And it's not like they never did this before. They brought people like Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn with legit backgrounds, but it was just something about Brock Lesnar coming back, being in the UFC, and winning the UFC heavyweight champion, and then he comes back to WWE, bringing that style into WWE. It's crazy, man, and I loved it.
Ring style that no one in the company had shown before. This is one that gets brought up all the time, yet it's one I don't agree with. People have commented about this outcome too in my Reliving the War series, but I'll explain why I don't agree with it in a moment. Diamond Dallas Page got himself a title shot against the undefeated Bill Goldberg at Halloween Havoc 1998, and everyone felt that DDP should have won. Loads of folks who bought the pay-per-view didn't see the match ending because Halloween Havoc ran for too long, but it aired for free the following night on Nitro, and the two had a very good match that folks say had the wrong outcome. In my opinion, and it's only my opinion, DDP should have won the world belt, but he shouldn't have beaten Goldberg for it. Page was adored by WCW fans during this time period, and I think when he eventually won the title at Spring Stampede the following year, it was definitely too little too late. But then you have to look at Goldberg and see the fans' reaction to Goldberg. Page was popular for sure, but Goldberg's popularity was truly on another level. I personally think that fans could have potentially turned on Page if he ended the streak on this night.
Okay,
you really need to look back at how fans treated Goldberg back then. His name was chanted in matches he wasn't even involved in. Arenas exploded the second he stepped into the ring, and without question, DDP was the better wrestler, but Goldberg was the safest choice WCW had when deciding the...
Now that's saying something. DDP was the better wrestler than Goldberg. I wonder who wrote that for him. Bret Hart? No, I'm just playing.
For this match. If it had been anyone else other than Goldberg, then I'd say absolutely DDP should have won. And I do think DDP should have won the championship in 1998. But as good as DDP versus Goldberg was, I probably wouldn't have booked that match in the first place. Charlotte defeated Asuka at WrestleMania 34, and there was really no upside.
Oh my God, I'm glad they brought this up, man. They've done Asuka dirty, and they've been doing her dirty ever since this, man. This was just ridiculous.
Charlotte retaining her championship here. Asuka was undefeated in WWE during her whole run in NXT. She didn't take a single loss, and this win streak continued when Asuka made it to the main roster, riding a huge wave of popularity and being seen as the most unstoppable female competitor the WWE had at the time. Man. She won the Royal Rumble and earned the right to face Charlotte at the biggest event of the year, and Charlotte beat her clean as a whistle at WrestleMania. Not only that, Charlotte made Asuka tap out to reclaim the SmackDown Women's Championship.
Not only did Asuka lose, y'all made her lose by tapping out. Like that, if that wasn't a bury, I don't know what was. Like, what? Let's just continue.
Two ways of looking at this, really. There's an argument to be made that Asuka winning the championship kind of repeats what happened to Goldberg. The company booked themselves in a corner and they risk fan backlash when Asuka eventually loses the championship. But at the same time, it did feel like a major letdown when Charlotte ended this win streak at WrestleMania. Everyone thought the Empress of Tomorrow was going to win this one, and I too would have bet money that she was going to leave Mania with the gold. But it didn't happen, and many fans see this as a big misstep by WWE.
My friend used to pay $163 for car insurance. Now look how much he pays.
Randy Orton versus Hulk Hogan, SummerSlam 2006. The young guy known as the Legend Killer was unable to defeat possibly the biggest legend of them all, and I always thought the wrong call was made here. This would actually turn out to be Hogan's final WWE match, and it could have ended with Randy living up to his Legend Killer moniker by ending Hulkamania for good. But Hulk ended up beating Randy at around the 10-minute mark, and it was Orton who was showing up on TV for the remainder of the year while Hulk Hogan went home. I get it too, absolutely not hating on Hogan here because the brother was a master at this kind of thing, but there was way more upside to Randy defeating Hogan here simply because Randy had a lot more years ahead of him. The legend of Hulk Hogan will indeed be immortal whether Hulk wins or loses a pay-per-view match in 2006. So I just don't understand why the company wouldn't tell Hogan he was gonna lose and reap the benefits of their full-time guy now being the ultimate Legend Killer.
Exactly.
To put it into perspective though, and to reel it in a bit here, the loss didn't really hurt Randy Orton in the long run. He achieved great things after the Hogan match, and it's really just a distant memory now in terms of Randy's overall career. But the gloating this man could have done after ending Hulkamania could have been some good TV.
I can see that. I definitely see that.
I could name more Hogan matches here, and I'm sure you could too, but I'll mention just one more. Hogan versus Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9. A match that I feel shouldn't have even taken place. You know the story. Yokozuna wins his first WWF title after defeating Bret Hart. Hulk Hogan then comes down. He gets challenged to step into the ring against the new champ. Bret says, yay, Hulkamania, go get him. And Hogan ends up beating Yokozuna in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, that's
Hulkamaniacs rejoiced, but Hitman fans were less enamored. It also kind of sucked that Yokozuna had his big crowning moment also taken away from him, and I do feel we focus on Bret's side of the story without even considering how big Yoko felt about this whole thing. But yeah, an incredible lack of foresight here, even if it did pop the audience in Las Vegas. Yokozuna would reclaim his championship at the 1993 King of the Ring, and Hogan would say goodbye to the WWF. Bret Hart, meanwhile, would get his big Mania moment when he defeated Yokozuna in a rematch the following year at Mania 10, so it kinda worked itself out in the end.
But what was the point? Yeah, what was the point?
Brock Lesnar ending The Undertaker's undefeated WrestleMania streak, I think wasn't the right call. I don't think Brock Lesnar was the right choice.
Alright. For those that don't know, the reason why that happened, they had to pull the trigger because Undertaker was concussed. So they had to pull a swerve on this. I honestly think the original plans was for Undertaker to go over, but since he had that injury during the ring, they had to reverse the call, because not reverse the call, but they had to, go with a different plan, because in Undertaker's words, he don't even remember I think he said he don't even remember half of the match, or probably even the whole match. He just remembered just waking up at a hospital and they said he had been concussed. So yeah, they had to, it wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And I'm just saying, I mean, that was the right decision, because I don't even think Undertaker could have, get the pin, honestly. But,
Ending The Undertaker's undefeated streak at one point felt as equally as important as winning the WWE title at the Showcase of the Immortals. In storyline, superstars would be desperate to have their chance against the dead man, and ending the streak became this impossible, monumental task that folks would try to do each and every year. Brock Lesnar was the one who ended that streak at Mania 30, and I don't think he needed that accolade at all. When asked about this on the Broken Skull sessions, Vince McMahon kinda made it out like no one else on the roster had the credentials to end the streak other than Brock. Brock was the only believable option, apparently. But I think another really viable option would have been for the streak to never end. Just let The Undertaker retire with that incredible run of WrestleMania victories, and I don't know, even have someone try to match the win number years later or something. If the streak really had to end, then I would have went with either Randy Orton at WrestleMania 21 or Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25 or 26. I just don't think Brock needed to end it, and if I had the choice, I would have let the Phenom retire with that great win streak still intact. It would have been a way to further immortalize one of the greatest legends to ever step foot in a WWE ring. Another WrestleMania match, Triple H versus Sting at WrestleMania 31. Again, like many of these matches, it all comes down to the winner not really.
Of course, this made the countdown, but I'm gonna let him finish, and I'm gonna give you my reason why Triple H. This was the right decision. Have Triple H go over against Sting.
The victory, and Triple H did not need to beat Sting at WrestleMania. The WWE could have proved here that they weren't all about killing off former WCW stars, and they could have gave Sting a bit more reassurance in his new job by letting him win on the platform he wanted to perform on for years, but no.
Disagree.
Triple H wins this match that devolved into a DX versus NWO brawl. I do think Triple H's Reign of Terror thing gets overblown a little, and I've always thought that particular run made the eventual downfall of Triple H a bit more exciting for fans to watch. You don't build up a super heel champion by having him lose, you know, but I also understand that the selections that were made for Hunter's opponents weren't right at all, and the collateral damage that was done to guys like Booker and RVD could have been avoided. But at the same time, the Reign of Terror was all the way back at the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression era. Over 10 years later, in 2015, Triple H had absolutely nothing to prove anymore, and Sting having a match at WrestleMania was a real attraction. Why Sting couldn't just win this match is beyond me, and no matter what way you look at it, it seems like the decision to have Triple H go over was a petty one. It didn't do Triple H any favours, it didn't do Sting any favours, and fans look back at the match today with a little contempt.
Okay, people forget when people bring up this discussion about Sting's time in WWE, his run in WWE, and they completely look over the fact that Sting got hurt. So that ruined plans for the future. Y'all act like Sting came into Mania and lost, and he had a match with Seth Rollins, and he was like, oh, my contract is up, let me go somewhere else. No, he got hurt in the middle of a feud. So who really knew what the plans were going to be for him? It might have led up to, him winning at Survivor Series, and then when the next Mania came, Sting would have, got his Mania moment. Just because he lost his first match in WWE don't mean nothing. Like, if we would have let this played out, who would have known what his run in WWE would have become? So that's why I totally disagree what he said about that. You never know what the income from the outcome from a match. Just like when Cody won at Mania, the previous year he lost, and people was upset about that. But y'all don't know the final outcome and the story. Let the story play out. It's a shame we couldn't get to see the story played out because he got injured. But if you would have let it played out, if he didn't get injured, I'm pretty sure whatever win he was going to get would have outshined his loss at Mania.
The Fiend was one of the more interesting characters WWE presented during a time when things were pretty bleak within the company. It was certainly one of the more creative aspects of WWE programming during this time period, but what's even more important here is the fact that fans really got a kick out of Bray Wyatt's new alter ego. The Fiend defeated Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel 2019 for the Universal Championship, and the decision to put the championship on The Fiend was a pretty positive one. There were many ways this championship run could go, and whoever defeated this mysterious and sinister entity would likely have to overcome some insurmountable odds to become Universal Champion. Enter Bill Goldberg, a man who had wrestled 2 matches in 2019 and a man who would wrestle 2 matches in 2020. One of those matches was against The Fiend at Super Showdown, and in this match, Goldberg won the Universal Championship. Fans were pretty much outraged at this outcome, and I'll admit I thought it was pretty dumb too, and I don't dislike Bill Goldberg the way everyone else does. Again, it goes back to having no upside. Goldberg's other 2020 match was against Braun Strowman at WrestleMania 36, mere weeks after Super Showdown, and to add insult to injury, Goldberg dropped the championship in this very match. So the Fiend's run with the championship was destroyed for the sake of a Goldberg run that didn't even last for a month. The fact that Goldberg would only show up every now and then on TV didn't really help matters. His WWE history from 2016 onwards was nothing more but a match here and a match there. And the vast majority of fans felt that Goldberg shouldn't have been in the title picture at all, seeing as he was only appearing on a part-time basis. The fact that he beat The Fiend, one of the WWE's brighter prospects in a very long time, in a match that went for 3 minutes only amplified the problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car. Okay, you ready? All right, 100.
The 7-on-7 elimination match at SummerSlam 2010 was a bit of a joke, and it's used a lot when people talk about the Super Cena years. That period of time when it was just accepted by fans that John Cena's gonna win, even when it made no sense for him to do so. It was a Team WWE versus Team Nexus elimination match, and the Nexus were white hot. According to Wade Barrett, the Nexus thought they were winning the match, but the decision was changed very late. And many viewers felt that the Nexus really should have won this bout because it would have further solidified them as a real force in WWE. Now, to be fair too, the Nexus story was all about strength in numbers. When those numbers dwindle down, or when some of the lads have to have matches on their own with no interference, they wouldn't usually fare too well. So as Team Nexus got smaller and smaller as the match progressed, it kinda made sense that they would look and feel a lot weaker. But the way John Cena won this match has been criticised quite a lot, and we would learn years later that the one big spot that gets called out all the time was actually Cena's idea. John took a DDT on the concrete floor and was still able to win the match. It's not like other folks haven't been planted with a DDT on the outside only to continue on wrestling afterwards, but the way it was done made the DDT look like a legit career-ending move, and the Nexus had a 2-on-1 advantage here to boot. The odds were just way too highly stacked against Cena, yet about a minute after taking that DDT, he was able to eliminate both Justin Gabriel and Wade Barrett to win the match. Chris Jericho and Edge, members of Team WWE on this night, criticised the DDT on Jericho's podcast. They said it was a John Cena idea, and John actually said afterwards that he should have listened to Jericho and Edge telling him the spot wasn't going to go over well. But on top of this, I think the Nexus should have won on this night, and it's a shame the decision to let Team WWE win was changed at the very last minute. I don't think any single member of the Nexus were at the level John Cena was at SummerSlam 2010, not by a long shot, but that strength in numbers thing could have came into play once again, and the faction could have came out stronger than ever following this pay-per-view without causing any damage to John Cena's reputation afterwards. As a matter of fact, it could have probably helped John Cena's reputation quite a bit. Batista winning his second Royal Rumble in 2014 was seen as a big mistake, and even Batista himself said he shouldn't have won the Rumble that year. This happened in the middle of the whole Yes movement thing, where fans were clamouring for Daniel Bryan to get a break, and the fans were desperate to see Daniel get another opportunity at the big time. The thing is though, Daniel wasn't even part of the match, so I really don't think it mattered who won this Royal Rumble. The audience were going to react negatively no matter what. That being too, Batista had only returned and it looked like his run wasn't going to be that long. Big Dave was a Hollywood star when he came back to WWE, and generally speaking, pro wrestling fans can sometimes see part-timers as vultures swooping in and claiming the spotlight, taking away those big moments that really belong to someone else. Even Rey Mysterio got booed in this match just for coming out at number 30. Fans were hoping and praying that Daniel would be the final entrant, even though he wasn't advertised for the match. And if Daniel's absence made fans boo Rey Mysterio, then that should tell you all you need to know about Daniel's popularity during this time period. With this in mind, I always thought the Bray Wyatt vs Daniel Bryan match that happened earlier in the night was fantastic, and it's one of my favourite Daniel Bryan matches ever. I know it's not really a consolation for fans in attendance that night, but at least they still got to see a good matchup featuring their hero. In the end, Daniel Bryan didn't lose any popularity. He actually gained popularity from this little misstep, but it certainly affected Batista's standing in the company.
Batista.
If you give me a minute of your time, I can break down exactly why business loans are a scam. You've been told the wrong thing.
Another Goldberg one right here, but this time it's Goldberg who should have won, in my opinion. Since he arrived in WWE in 2003, Goldberg struggled a little when getting over with the fans. He definitely had his supporters, but he would also get booed if he went up against the wrong person. Just look at his first WWE match against The Rock and you'll know what I'm talking about. That being said, fan opinion began to shift a little by the time SummerSlam 2003 arrived, and as it would turn out, Goldberg was favoured to win the World Championship Elimination Chamber match that was going to headline that particular show. It seemed like WWE had finally tapped into what made Goldberg so popular in WCW as he went to work inside the chamber. Goldberg put on a really dominant performance here as he eliminated Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho all within around 3 minutes. But what you really need to keep in mind here is the fact that fans were going crazy for Goldberg while this was going down. Everyone was happy to see Goldberg wreck everything that moved inside that chamber, and it felt like the roof was going to come off the arena when he won the championship. Only he didn't win the championship. He was put down by Triple H's sledgehammer and he got pinned by the game at the end of the match. Worse still, Goldberg was beaten up by Triple H in Evolution as the event faded out, meaning the aforementioned Reign of Terror was going to continue. Now, Goldberg did win the championship the following month at Unforgiven, and he beat Triple H in a career versus title match. But in a way, the WWE let the moment pass, and the Elimination Chamber result would end up hurting both Goldberg and Triple H when it came to their overall perception in the eyes of wrestling fans. It's another cheap win for Triple H, and it's Goldberg at his most dominant, still getting his ass kicked.
Another cheap win for Triple H. I think most wrestling fans forget the point of having a faction. If you're the leader of the faction, you don't have to win clean ever. That's the whole point of having his faction and being a heel. They win matches dirty, all right? So it's just like look at Roman Reigns. He hasn't had one match where he won it by himself clean, legit. He's a heel in a faction. I mean, if I had a faction, I'm not expecting, I'm expecting to win all my matches because of my, my guys. Like, come on now.
More of a personal choice, but hear me out. Shawn Michaels should have defeated Diesel at WrestleMania 11 for the WWF title. Not only did the crowd begin to turn on Diesel more and more as the match progressed, but Diesel winning this match did two major things that hurt the company overall, in my opinion. Firstly, it led to Diesel having a string of mediocre main event title matches until he lost the belt to Bret Hart at Survivor Series 95. And two, the win effectively took Shawn Michaels off the road for around 6 weeks while the company repackaged him as a babyface. In 1995, the company could simply not afford to take their top talent away from TV screens. 1995 could have looked a lot different with Shawn Michaels headlining shows as a heel champion. You could argue that the butterfly effect would have been way too drastic with the Mania 12 match and 1996 babyface run possibly not happening. But 1995 was such a bad year for WWF that I actually think it would have been interesting to see how someone else would have fared as the main headline act. Ratings may not have increased, but it's certain that match quality would have. The run could even end at SummerSlam, which could have potentially gave HBK a chance to turn babyface just in time for the Royal Rumble, but really it's all hypothetical anyway, and it's more of a personal choice that's just more of a curiosity than anything deeply substantial. Just something to think about, really. As always, I've left out loads here. Cena versus Bray.
Alright guys, we at the end of the video. Let me know how y'all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me at the Wrestling Society podcast. Tell me what y'all think and what else y'all want me to react to. All right, check it out till next time.